My passion is transformation. Specifically, it's how we translate and transform your passionate energy, your talents, your abilities into tangible results. So whether it's a book, it's your first video series, it's you on stage, or it's your product getting into the hands of millions of people across the world, my passion is to empower you to transform that dream into physical reality. As a physician, it's what I've done using these exact 5 elements. So I'm a traditional medical doctor and surgeon, but I trained in acupuncture as well. And using Chinese medicine, I always loved getting in to understand what drove my patients and their behaviors and their physiology and their choices, so that I could empower them to make better choices, so that I could empower them to live in their strengths as opposed to focusing on their weaknesses. So let's start off first. I want to know if there's anyone here who already feels that you have a product or service that you believe can benefit millions of people. Not bad, because Iceland is kind of a small territory. I've just realized, wow, it's such a small market. So there are a few of you that feel like you can reach millions and change some lives. Yes? Now, how many of you believe that possibly the media, and that's broadcast television, that's digital media, books, radio, podcasts, how many of you feel that that sort of media could help you get your product or service out there? Anyone? The majority of you. How many of you are confident in your PR and communication strategy? A couple of these things, whatever that means. How many of you already feel confident in what your brand stands for? Who are you as a brand? What are your values, your missions? Now, I need you to answer, so I don't want to focus on information you don't need. I only want to focus on, since it's our last few minutes together. How many of you feel confident in your brand, that you could specifically, if CNN were to walk in and say, hey, tell me about what is your amazing product, and how are you saving lives or transforming lives? How many of you could say that with confidence? Okay. All right, so we have a little bit more work to do, and we're going to get into it. So there are very few of you that feel like you're ready to go global, it sounds like, but more of you that feel like you probably need some help on the branding. Now, the good news about all of this is, no matter if you're working on a local level or you're trying to go global, once you master your brand and your messaging, then you can take it as far as you want to. And you can do it in baby steps. It's like what Thorna was telling us. We can start where it's comfortable, and you can grow from there. And sometimes when you're bold, like Runa, you can reach across the waters. It all depends on your goal. So what is your goal? Be thinking about it, because for me, this whole concept of branding, and you heard it maybe didn't hear it in the intro, it's all about branding who you really are. My whole, value system is based in authenticity and integrity, and I know you don't want to hear that, Derry. These are just empty words. But for me, when I'm working with clients, I don't want you to try to become me or become the next Oprah or think you have to fit into a Hollywood model, because it's not sustainable. I want you to embrace your strengths and your talents, find out your message, because I firmly believe that there is an audience waiting for you. And when you can present that with confidence, it will resonate with the right people, and they'll connect with you. Does that make sense? The reason I bring that up too is because, if we go back to 2004, the second time I was on the Oprah show, I had just published my first book, which was a motivational strategy. 5 simple steps for total wellness. I know, very American, with our 5 steps and all of that. But I was at the height of my career. I had, without trying, I had built a multi-million-dollar business and was doing what I loved at the time. So that's 2004. Doing great stuff, flying all over, at least in America, just starting to touch international waters. The following year, 2005, I went through the dark night of the soul. And actually, in the south of France, asked God to take my life. Now, I know that sounds dramatic, so let me explain. I was not suicidal, but I was in the darkest depression that you could ever imagine. Why? Because I had climbed that wonderful ladder of success. I had everything that you would consider successful, being touted by Oprah, being called upon by the largest medical institutions, and seeing people from all over the world. But as was said earlier, my ladder was propped up against the wrong wall or the wrong mountain. I wasn't living my passion. So does anyone guess what my passion is? Just from the 2.5 minutes you've known me?
Change lives.
Be who I really am, change lives. Pardon me? Well-being. Empowerment. Vitality. These are the things that matter to me most. The thing that I'm most passionate about is sharing in an explosive and fiery way. Now, in the beginning of my career, I was doing that because I'm an actor. I just happen to be an actor who's also a doctor playing a doctor on TV. But after doing that for a couple of years, I got incredibly bored. Okay, so I'm a novelty seeker. If you also do some of these personality types, yeah, we have great qualities, and yes, there is a shadow side. So as a novelty seeker, it works great with my clients because I can get into these new paradigms and it's all new, and I'm a creative visionary. But if it goes on too long and I get bored, not good. And that's what happened in my case. The brand that we built, this Dr. Andrea brand, was not built consciously. And that's why I talk so much about consciousness. Be conscious of who you really are, because if you're building a business today in this wood cycle of this earth economy, you probably, given we've just come through an ugly recession, you probably want a business that's going to last a while, right? It's not like just a fun little hobby that you're like, oh, I'll do it for a few years and then who cares, right? Most of us who have children, we want a business that either we can sell or it becomes a legacy and it sustains us into the foreseeable future, correct? Well, the way you do that is through consciousness. It means you are going to attend workshops like these. You're going to seek out coaches and mentors who can take you to that next level. But as I have found for myself, when you are truly living your truth and your passion, then you get into that flow that Nick talked about. That alignment where things just flow naturally. Does that make sense? All right. So, what's your goal with media exposure? It can help you get noticed. So sorry for those of you who grew up in a family where you didn't want to stand out. When you want to reach millions, it's time for you to stand out and get noticed. It's a crowded marketplace. But you also want to leave your mark, and ultimately you want to get paid. Now, I'm in the wellness business. I work with coaches and transformational leaders, and so a lot of people don't want to talk about the money. They're like, oh no, I'm just here to serve. And yes, it's true. But if you've got a kid like mine who's this little artsy girl who wants every new fancy thing she sees and wants to go to the best schools, you gotta get paid at some point. The media can do that for you. So, the 3 P's, this magic formula, the first P is position. And that's what branding is all about. Just like on a sports team, whether you're going to be the catcher or you're the point guard or whatever, you've got to know your position. So know your brand so that you can be seen, you can stand out, you can get noticed. All right? So this first P, this position, defining your brand identity. I'm going to fly through this because we've touched on it. You'll get these slides if you'd like them, and I have a free training that takes you through it step by step, so that you can actually write it down, think about it, push pause on the video, digest it. But you've got to do this, guys. If you really want to succeed, it's got to be conscious, and you've got to get it out of the land of the nebulous and put it into writing. So what do you stand for? What does your brand stand for? In 2 minutes, you were able to tell me what my brand was about, mainly. Now, obviously, we've thrown out some examples like Oprah Winfrey. We could talk about Coca-Cola. We could talk about Iceland as a brand, and you can know those quickly. Well, that's the same thing that needs to happen with you. Your brand. We have to know in an instant what you stand for. And we talk about defining your MVPs. Your mission. your values, and your passions. Now, we've talked a lot about passion all day. Why? Because if you're not passionate, over time you will get bored, or you'll find that, who wants to focus on all of this stuff, this marketing, if there's no heart behind it, right? So you've got to know, what is your mission? My mission is to empower people to know who they are, to love who they are, and to share themselves passionately with the world, whether it's in their relationship or it's in their business. That's my mission. My values, obviously, you've heard me talk about it: authenticity, creativity, the drive for excellence. And what is your passion? What are you really passionate about? Get that down. Now, Runa calls, when we talk about marketing and sales, we talk about your USP, your unique selling proposition. The beautiful Runa calls it your X factor. Sounds sexier, right? What is your X factor? It's what makes you unique. It is that unique piece of you that no other person on the planet has. So even if there is another coach doing what you do, they don't do it like you do, with the flavor that you do. So we go beyond competition, because the reality is there's enough in this world for all of us to get what we want. So it's not about competing. We're not trying to make you better and the same as someone. No, we want you to embrace your X factor. Your personality. Embrace it. Most people have talked about sex today, and I was like, oh my God, they're talking about sex. Well, you saw my 3-orgasm prescription. Okay, fine. Eventually you got to bring up the pieces of your personality that make you unique and make you stand out. What aspect of, we know about your flying plank thing today, comment at lunch, right? Anyway, someone else will describe it later. The plank. Voila. Character strengths. What are your character strengths? You can take a wonderful assessment online that is scientifically validated. So you heard me admit to Oprah's audience that I'm a nerd. I accept it. I embrace it now. I no longer hide. I am a nerd, and I love it. Okay. I love science, and I love statistics. And there have been these character strength evaluations that have been validated across cultures and across the world. So I highly recommend 2. One is the VIA, the Values in Action, which will quickly give you a sense of your values and how they play most in your life. And the other is the TCI, the Temperament and Character Inventory, which points to the aspects of your personality that are actually transmitted in the DNA. Cool stuff. The reason I say this is because you can, of course, choose to play up your strengths or not. But if you choose to hide them for any length of time, it won't last very long. Eventually, it'll leak out, whether for better or for worse, right? What do you deliver best? When you're positioning yourself, you want to focus on, what do you deliver? We call it the RSVP model, your results. Now again, a lot of people don't like to brag, but when you get into the media, you have to remember, this is show business. You have to show us. Someone here, we'll give her a big hand, lost something like 90 pounds. So what would she do in her marketing? She would show us her results, before and after. Works really well. Right? So if you don't want to talk about it because you're shy, then you show us your results. Your success. If you helped a company increase their revenue by $100,000 in a 9-month period, you want to talk about that success in your branding. What is your value proposition? So that's your RSVP. Next, the second P is to present clearly. Now this gets into what Monique talked about with our messaging. Your message has got to be clear and concise. So when you start to present yourself, what do you want to do? You want to be remembered. So maybe they don't need what you have to offer today, but you want to be top of mind when someone does need a coach for climbing Everest, or when someone does need a social media marketing person. So you may not need it today, your client may not need you today, but if you're branding yourself appropriately, you'll be linked with that result and you'll be top of mind. So they know to call on you. And so the media knows to call on you. So if I'm booking for TV this month, but I'm not doing a weight loss story. But I've seen your press releases come through. I've seen your little Facebook posts. You'll be top of mind for next month when, oh, okay, we're going into the holiday season where people want to lose weight. I know who I could call on. Give me your best tips on losing weight over the holiday season instead of gaining weight. You should be writing that down because that should be in your present. Just saying. These are the things that we talk about when we're talking about presenting. Now, I loved that, who was it? Was it you that talked about takeaways? Wait. Yes, takeaways. I talk about this with my clients all of the time. Craft your message takeaways. Each brand or each product should have 3 takeaway messages. At least 3, but narrow it down to 3. What are the 3 things you want the audience or that TV producer to link with you in their mind? Craft these carefully because you've heard you only have 7 seconds to make that impression. If people are watching TV, they're going to click away. Or if they're listening to the radio as they're driving down the road, if there's not something that is engaging them, they can change the station. So craft those takeaways so that you're not just blah, blah, blahing, you're injecting those message points that you want to be remembered for. They should be concise and catchy, not long-winded. Monique said what, 10 words? Visible and relatable. It's show business, folks. We need to be able to imagine you on TV with us. So, how many of you in your future vision with Runa this morning imagine yourself having some sort of TV exposure? I mean, the Oprah thing helped us, right? So you can imagine, oh yeah, I'm there being interviewed or something, right? How would you represent your brand if you were on your favorite show? I want you to really get a vision of that, because if you don't write it and you leave it up to the producers, honey, it ain't gonna be pretty. And I say that because I already made that mistake. I just assumed, oh, they're smart people. They'll just read all of the press materials. They'll ask me the right questions. You have to feed it to them. You have to spoon feed it to them. So you have to tell us in the media what you want us to ask you, what you want to be known for. And it needs to be visible and relatable. We need to see it and feel it and hear it and know that you're going to engage our audience. Because ultimately in TV and radio, we have a responsibility to keep those viewers engaged. So we don't want boring people who are just going to blah, blah, blah. We want people who are going to be catchy and funny or so inspiring or so blowing our minds that the people at home are saying, I want to turn, but I can't. And it also needs to be easily summarized. So your message takeaways should be easily summarized. So at the end of the interview, a person could just recap those top 3 things and then give your website. And actionable. You've heard a little bit about what do you want people to do with the information. Now, if you're in the early stages and you're just trying to brand yourself and you want that visibility because it's going to raise your credibility, that's fine. But in this day and age, at least have an ebook, at least have a something so that you can tell people at the end of that interview, please visit AndreaPennington.com and download this free ebook about how to love your authentic self. Or visit Brand Who You Really Are so you can get this free video training on how to brand yourself for the media. You tell them where to go and what to do. Click to download, join and subscribe to the podcast, whatever. It needs to be actionable so that as they've gotten all this great information and now they're feeling like, oh, this person is good, I trust them, I'm starting to get a relationship with them, now what do you want them to do with it? I'm surprised we haven't heard this today, but all of your online profiles need to be consistent, okay? Colors, fonts, your email signatures, all of them have to have the same sort of language, right? So for those of you that like putting funny quotes or inspirational quotes, they should be sprinkled through everything so that we get a sense of who you are, what is your brand, your printed materials. All of that should be consistent across all of your profiles, from LinkedIn to Facebook to Twitter to Pinterest to blah, 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 on. How many of you have an electronic press kit? 2.5. And someone said, wait, what is that? It is a shortcut to getting all of the intelligence about you or your brand or your product in one easy to find place. I have a lot of clients who thought just because they had a website and a blog and some YouTube videos that producers would just Google them to know how fabulous they were. Right, because we in television have so much time, we're just going to Google you. If we stumble across your site in the first place, there should be a press or a media link where we can go and in one click see your bio, see your headshot, see your logo if we are going to include it. We can easily download that. Clippings of either past exposure in the media or excerpts of a book you've written, audio files, a podcast. It's all in one place, and consider an EPK as just a shortcut to the best of you. So an EPK should have your bio, which is a biography, which should be professionally written. Especially if you're trying to branch into other markets and maybe your English is great spoken but maybe not written. Find really cheap people on Fiverr or Elance, someone who can polish it up. Your headshot, a portrait, should be professionally done. It should represent the energy of you. It shouldn't look all old and boring, unless you're just going to be like a university professor and that's what your brand is all about. Excerpts and samples, media clippings, speaking topics. So if you want someone to be booking you to speak at conferences or to be interviewed, then give us a list of the things that you're an expert in. Just because we land on your site and we see that you're a sex therapist, there are a lot of different things that sex therapists talk about. And not all of them talk about the same stuff. Your media outreach strategy. Your goals versus their goals. Now, your goal is to be on TV and to look really fabulous. And so people will see that you're an expert and you're trustworthy and your product is amazing, right? You want people to go to your website and click and buy, or you want them to buy your book. But what's the media's goal? What is our goal in TV or radio?
Get viewers.
To get viewers and get what?
Ratings.
Ratings. Right. Why do we care about ratings?
Because they sell ads.
Exactly, because it's a business and then we're in the business of delivering eyeballs to our advertisers. So your goal is to become quote unquote famous so that people will remember you and buy your stuff. Their goal is to keep eyeballs. So remember that when you're going in there. Your media outreach strategy should be to satisfy the media people. And you're just so fabulous that it just so happens that people get invested in your brand and your takeaways and they follow your action points, but always remembering that you're serving the media. Because when you do that, you'll be able to develop a relationship with the media. Headlines. It's the headlines that make you stop. The Cosmo magazine, drive him wild with these 3 hot tips. Why does it keep coming back to sex? Okay, whatever. Anyway, but your headlines are what are going to make people stop. So if it's the morning news, and people are brushing their teeth or getting their kids ready, and the TV announcer says, don't go away after this short break. We're going to give you 3 tips to bring out the sexy in you during menopause. It might work. So you want your headlines to be clever and catchy. Lists. Now, you guys laughed at the whole 5 steps to this and 7 steps to that and 3 ways to drive him wild. But all of the research shows that lists work and work and work. Because it gives a person something easy to grab onto. If they have a big problem like menopause, or a big problem like getting out of debt, or a big problem of mastering their strategy, and you're telling me that I can get there in 3 steps, 5 steps, 7 steps? I'm gonna click. I'm gonna click to open that. I'm gonna listen to that interview. Because that's just how humans think. We're thinking, please give me a shortcut. I know one doesn't really exist, but maybe this guy's got my shortcut. So think about these lists when you're creating your press releases, when you're creating your little postcards on Facebook, okay? And be solution-oriented. So people watch TV to be entertained, and people watch the news to be informed. And in this day and age, we want solutions. So the best kind of messages are solution-oriented. Build whatever solution you or your brand or your product solves, build that into your message and your headline. Controversy and spice. Now, this is for advanced users only. And I think our dear MC, our mistress of ceremonies, knows how to bring up the spice, does she not? But the reality is, it's show business. And sometimes you are going to deliver some amazing solution or something that's inspirational. But if you can give us some controversy or some spice, maybe you have a different take on what's going on in the world. So having the controversy or spice can sometimes play in your favor. I say it's for advanced users only because you don't want to do it willy-nilly if it doesn't fit your brand. So in these last couple of minutes, I want to open it up to questions because I've spewed a lot at you and I want to at least give you the chance to interact. I do want to let you know that I have a program called Brand Who You Really Are to work you through this step by step. And if you go to brandwhoyoureallyare.com, you can sign up for a free community where you'll get a video training series that walks you through what I call the 5 keys for media success. So that again, you can push pause and do this work. And you need to do this work when you really find that you've got a business or a product or a service that you want to share with the world. Even if you're not going to get on TV with it, you can use these tips to master your branding online. Make sense? So get all the free stuff. I'm here to give and share this stuff because it's a passion of mine. I made a ton of mistakes along the way and I want to prevent people from making those mistakes. All right, it has been a fabulous pleasure to be with you. There are gifts for you on the table. If any of you feel like you need help with nutrition, I have some free CDs. Some of them are on the table. And Anna has won a special little book. Voila. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time and attention. And thank you, Bruna.